Welcome to the aftermath of dumpster fire, FRILL Sharknado. These are the only survivors. Humanity is at a loss. And oddly enough, just like the pastor foretold, it's just a bunch of white people in a hangout gonna do a
Welcome
show
to
about
the
it.
aftermath of dumpster fire, FRILL Sharknado. These are the only survivors.
Are we getting? I don't know who
Yeah.
that is. Who is that?
That was
echo.
that was
Somebody's
my
watching the stream.
Somebody's watching the stream. We have
Either that or somebody is a really good impressionist.
that was really good. But at least we know one person is actually watching the live stream right now. So
That's my fault.
Confirmed. So
Yeah.
So we've got in the call. Everybody probably recognizes the two new individuals with the glasses on, the smart people, the ones with the letters after their name that know all kind of stuff that we don't, and that would be Dr. Misha Griffith and Dr. Herman Mays. Dr. Herman Mays, you have been what's the word? Getting inundated with Twitter messages. You've been dragged into the Twitter trenches, and I feel for you.
he's popular now.
That's okay. There's worse things to happen to me, I guess. But yeah, all because of Jensen. So
Yeah, but I'm telling you. And by the way, hello. We got Nicholas in here. Tony is back. I'm not. Shane is here. We're not sure who Home is, but they have unmuted. So Home, would you like to introduce? Because we don't even know who you are. You're like a grab bag, a mystery bag here. So,
I'm so
who do we
excited.
have? This is getting creepy.
You know what? You know what's
The
really
plot thickens.
no. I swear to God. You know what's really creepy about this? As I just watched Unfriended like 2 nights ago.
Oh, that's a creepy
This
movie.
is reminding me of that right now.
Yeah. Well, listen. The old guy goes first, Steve. So you're done for. Sorry.
Fuck. It's always the old white guy has to die first, isn't it? What the hell?
Yeah. But I was going to say, Dr. Mays, it's amazing to me how, kind of like what you saw in the last show, there seems to be and the only way I can put this is there's a disconnect between what reality is and what some people are able to create in their minds. Like, for some reason, some people create a narrative, it gets locked in, and they refuse to let it go despite any kind of evidence to the contrary. And what's happening on Twitter, I just want to touch on it just briefly, but they're accusing you of not addressing points in Dr. Jensen's book, and you clearly address points in Dr. Jensen's book. So I don't get where the disconnect is, and maybe you have some insight that I'm missing.
I mean, the people who are saying that are just people on his team. I mean,
Right.
it's a very tribal kind of thing, and and he started with that narrative, and they're just going to go along with it because he's on their team. Right? I mean,
That's a good point.
I think the fact that I over and over again emphasized exactly stuff that's in the book, both in the debate, and I talked about this on Apologia's rebuttal video. I have a written, at least part one of a written review on my blog. I've over and over again I've had tweets about this saying exactly what I talked about, and it's all there. And I think Jensen just can't deal with what I'm talking about. So it's easier for him to create this narrative that I didn't read the book, or
That's a good point.
being persecuted, and because there's stuff that he just doesn't understand. I mean, like, I keep talking about this idea about coalescent theory and in molecular evolution. He doesn't understand that. He just keeps, his answer is, well, nuclear data, Adam and Eve were heterozygous. That has nothing to do with it. He understood what he was talking about.
It so much. Somebody actually did a video of how many times he said you didn't read the book, or how many times he had said something like.
Actually, his biggest problem was the argument from next slide, please. That was the biggest fail that he had. So I mean,
right.
It's a
oh wow!
shame, though I really hope that they had gotten more about the book. That's why we were supposed to be talking about the book, and everything you brought up about the book, he deflected. Like,
well, I
But
wish
he
he would
didn't read the book.
I wish he would have just said, if I said something that was a mischaracterization of the book, a normal person would just say, well, you're mischaracterizing what I said. Here's what I really said. And then we would move on to talk about it.
Right.
But
I don't think he read his own book, Dr. Mays.
I don't think he
he read his own book.
I just don't think he wanted to discuss the book.
No.
Right.
Maybe he had a ghostwriter.
Pastor Sylvester, you made it. Let me start tonight's conversation off with a general blanket message to everyone. And this is something that I've noticed that happens, Pastor, when we do these after shows, and we have the either the young Earth Christians in, or there's a defensive stance that gets put on. And let me try to break through that to start off, because you have in here very bright people. Like, these are some experts in their fields. 2 PhDs are here with us, and one of them specifically relates directly to some of the points that you were bringing up. He is a expert in those fields. So let me invite you to not take a defensive, but use it as an opportunity to try to get some, any questions that you have ever wondered, or those kind of things. Just use it as a tool for expanding your knowledge, and not as somebody trying to battle you to the death on an issue. Does that make sense? Amen. Great. Okay.
I guess he agrees. Yes.
He's looks like his mic's not connected.
I think he's
Probably.
not on.
Well, okay. So that great speech that I just
I think
made up off the cuff is wasted.
I think he heard you. It's just.
This is a full moon, I swear.
By the
I
way,
realize-
Kyle, if I may, I this is not kissing ass. I thought you did a great job moderating. Steve, not so much, but you
What?
were awesome.
What moderating? What moderating?
You did a good job.
Tony, I know where you live.
You didn't keep us on topic, but you definitely made sure that nobody was talking over each other.
Oh, wait. So you
job.
did a great job moderating, but you didn't keep us on topic. Okay.
Yeah,
Look,
I knew it was
listen.
going to stand.
Yeah,
I've
good
watched all. They never stay on topic anyway, so who cares?
No,
No.
it's a shotgun approach, right? I mean, whenever you get a creationist that doesn't know the material, they have to just throw out a bunch of stuff. And even when you try to nail them down on one thing, they're just going to switch to something else. And so that's modus operandi of all creationists. Over all the years that I've been doing this, I've seen that same pattern in every one of them. Now, no disrespect to Pastor Sylvester here, but there's still a lower level echelon of creationists, such as George Lujak, pastor, that even aren't at even a level that even have potato yet. And so I would at least like to get them up to a level where they can even have beginning to have an understanding of these materials and have conversations.
Kyle spent the first 5 minutes of this stream trying to build up
I do the
dialogue
opposite.
and conversation.
You're
and
yin, I'm
Steve spent
yang.
the last 5 minutes just shitting all over that.
Yeah,
This is fantastic.
Yin yang. That's how that's what works.
Hey, let me ask-
I try to say stand up and expand your knowledge. Steve calls you a potato. There's where
No,
we are.
I did not. I said
There's
he's not. No, I said he's not up to the level of potato yet. He has to work to get to potato.
Dr. Griffith, hello to you.
You muted, she
She's
muted again.
unclick her
I'm-
mic.
There we go.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm sorry. I had forgotten to mute this time. What did you need, Kyle?
I was just saying hello, and for
Hi
you
there.
to plug your upcoming appearance.
Well, actually, it's a twofer because Jerry and I are going to be coming up sometime in the middle of November. I think it's around November 12th or November
That's correct.
13th. And we're going to do, we want to do a little presentation on heresies and cults in the medieval period. So,
That is fantastic.
So Adamites and Cathars and Hussites and a whole group of crazy millennialists and heretics, and there's going to be lots of killing and burning at the stake and that sort of stuff.
We can't get rid of the crazy
What
millennialists,
fun!
can we?
Yeah.
We're still plagued by crazy millennialists today.
Yeah, I know. I thought you guys would appreciate the fact that this stuff has been going on since day one.
But were they woke, Dr. Griffith? That's what I want to know. Were they woke back then like they are now? That's all that matters, is if you're woke.
No, they were more tipsy than woke.
I
Because
would,
no one drank water. They all drank alcohol. So everyone was just a little tipsy.
It's got water in it, don't it?
Full medieval
I
age.
knew I forgot something. I didn't get my drink on. Oh well.
It's got water in it, doesn't it? That counts.
Yeah, exactly. It's alcohol.
Hey, so when
it
is-
has water in it?
When this broadcasts, I mean, what I'm looking at right now looks like the Brady Bunch. Is that what it looks like?
What you see is what
Yes.
you get.
Yes, for the after show, yes, that we're all crammed together.
Yes.
And also, real quick, Tony. Then Tony, I'm gonna after I say this, I'm gonna let you touch on your thoughts and how tonight went, kind of because I'm surprised we haven't heard the pastor yet. Like, I don't think he's with us because I think we would have heard him by now, based on the last show. I might be wrong, but
Did you kill
Nicholas
him?
Brand
Is he no
is
longer
going to
with
be
us?
with us
He'll
next
always-
Friday. So, Nicholas, why don't you plug your appearance as well and tell us who you are. Introduce yourself.
Right, sweet. So, guys, I'm new to the area. Basically, I'm Nicholas Brand, and I'm a paleontology grad student. So I was trained undergrad in geology, and then I've done a lot of biology too. So I kind of got like a dual profession approach. I guess I can't think of the word. Sorry, you put me on the spot, Kyle. I blame you.
Listen, I can't think of the words half the time.
He doesn't
either.
remember his
You're
own
in good company.
education. He's so nervous.
Oh God,
This is his
Guys,
first
come on.
one.
No,
We're popping your cherry live.
You.
Us. Oh, Steve, you're
Do
fired
you have a
tonight.
YouTube
It's
channel?
okay. I gave Steve permission.
He did.
No, not yet.
Okay.
Yeah,
not yet. I'm gonna be.
In this type
working-
of culture, we have to ask first. We have to get permission, right? Me too, and all that. So I asked him first.
I gave Steve a very emphatic yes.
Oh, man.
He begged. Yeah.
I am not high enough for this. I am not high enough for this.
Not
I
yet.
am.
But
But what are we going to be talking about, Nicholas? What are we
so-
going to be talking about next week?
So I'm going to be going up into detail kind of about like dinosaurs and talking about them being feathered or not. I tend to err on the side of they are, and probably all, if not most of them. And I'll be kind of bringing some evidence, talking about both sides of that, and throwing some phylogeny in there too if I can. So
Are you a master's
It should be
student or
good fun.
PhD student?
master student.
What are you studying?
I'm working on it's actually not dinosaurs, it's mammal stuff that I'm working on right now. It's a site called Saltville. It's over in Virginia. So I'm at East Tennessee State University.
I know where
I'm
that is.
working on some so I'm working on some just nice Pleistocene stuff.
Oh, great.
So-
That's good.
Yeah, I'm
So
excited.
there's a lot of knowledge in this room tonight is basically what we're saying, what we're getting at. There's a lot of knowledge here.
And that's why I want Pastor
But-
Williams to be able to communicate, but I don't know what's going on.
Maybe that's why he's not answering. It's all of the academic scholar rays that are pressing against whatever young earth creationists exude and stopping him from doing that.
He's just not
Makes sense.
speaking to us.
Yeah, he just does. All of you guys on my Zoom, you've all got mic icons, and he doesn't. So I can only guess that he doesn't have a mic plugged in.
Or
Hey, Pastor Williams, you don't have a mic.
Or what happened was he probably forgot to activate it. He needs to go down to the very bottom to the menu that comes up. It says mute,
Just pray, Pastor.
and then you have a little arrow
pray.
thing. Click that, and it comes up, and you can select your microphone. And so,
By the way, I wanted to note before we turn it over to Tony Reed, we still do not know who Home is, and I'm starting to get freaked out.
I'm telling you, unfriended.
Yeah.
Who made a video about home that shouldn't have been made and published it and embarrassed him? Who was that?
Number one, let's break this down. Who calls himself Home? That right there in itself warrants questioning.
Not good.
I think I might know who it is, but
Okay,
not
Tony
real
Reed.
sure.
How did the night go?
I was actually surprised. I was very nervous going into this because I actually thought this is my first debate. I actually thought I was going to get different responses. I thought because it was going to be specific about fossils, I did my research on fossils. That's what I was ready for, and we didn't really talk about fossils. So I don't think I was
How
prepared.
could you not
for
know
it.
when they say fossils, they mean racism? How could you not know that that's what that means?
You know, that's the thing is I did my research. I knew it was, he had talked about racism and evolution being associated with racism, and I still think that's a great subject. We should breach that sometime,
Agreed.
and I'd love to be a part of that. But you know, I mean, that wasn't what the subject was, and so you know, call me, you know, I guess maybe I'm a little autistic, but I mean, that's what the parameters were. Is we're
I don't
talking
think you
about
were.
fossils and how they established the age of the Earth, and that took up all of 7 minutes of the entire debate, which was 2 hours.
Yeah, it was such a long debate. But for your first, I didn't know that was your first debate. For your first debate, that was fantastic. I mean, you came prepared. You had your a presentation, and how could you know that it would?
Yep.
I didn't expect it. I didn't expect to hear the moon dust argument. I didn't expect to hear the. Well, I guess I kind of expected to hear something about living fossils because I mean we're talking about fossils, but I mean
my favorite was the whale on the mountain. I nearly pissed myself.
Yeah,
when I heard that.
nobody uses the moon dust. I haven't heard that in ages. I mean, obviously, Pastor Williams didn't get the memo on that because even creation.
Where is this whale on the mountain? Is this a true thing?
Yes.
Oh yeah, I was wanting to look that up too because where I've never.
It's not like a modern whale, but it's like the same thing with the seashells, right? They found seashells on like the Himalayas because of plate tectonics and uplift and all that. But these shells are not modern shells. They're what we'd expect from hundreds of millions years old type shells. And so when
how did the whale get on the mountain?
Well,
here's the question. Here's the thing about that.
What was the Pachycetus? I don't know what it was. Dr. Mays, what was it? It was some precursor to a whale, whatever. Pachycetus.
Pachycetus.
It could have been Pachycetus amblicitus. Yeah, I think it was Pachycetus. That is a
Really?
Yeah, that's one of the original. That's the original whale, right? But it's not like a modern whale.
There's a paleontologist here. Nicholas, how did the whale get on top of the mountain?
Magic.
Uplift.
Yeah, uplift.
I find fossils in the mountains all the time. It's not impossible. It's basically just tectonic plates moving. I'm not sure where this whale is, but it's not unreasonable at all.
He said it was in the Andes, and I'm not aware of any plates that are congruous in the Andes.
No, there's a subduction zone there, but those are all volcanic.
Well, if you have a subduction, I'm going to do a visual because he can't.
Where's that at?
If you have a subduction zone, don't you still have uplift on the other side?
Yeah, you still have.
Yeah, but most of the Andes, from what I understand, a lot of it's volcanics because you've got that plate going underneath. That's but
there's also several different Andes. There's the Chilean Andes, the Himalayan Andes.
That's true. There.
So
they extend really far.
That was the thing. It is the Himalayas is actually where we're seeing a lot of fossil sea creatures, and that's because obviously exactly like you said, it's from uplift that the Indian plate is hitting the Asian plate.
It's the Indian plate going down.
Yeah.
What I'm hearing is a bunch of. It sounds like a bunch of confusion here. So I'm going to go ahead and put a tick in the creationist box because the flood is much simpler.
You guys are all just making stuff up as you go along.
The water went away and the whale just got stuck, unfortunately, on the mountain.
This is what happens when evolutionists don't know what they're talking about. They just make stuff up. See this?
All right.
This weird thing about subduction and uplift and thrust and all that. That's crazy talk.
It's all fake.
Fake stuff.
CGI. I bet it was CGI. Like NASA. NASA probably put the whale up there just to fuck with us.
Hey, I got a question for Dr. Mays because Tony was using this word evolutionist. I use the word evolutionist. I'm an evolutionist. I'm thrilled to death to be an evolutionist. Let me explain to you why I'm an evolutionist kind of thing. What do you like? What do you think about the word? Do you think it shouldn't use because creationists misuse it, or should we own it?
Well, I don't know.
It's hit or miss, right? Because nobody says gravitationalist, right?
When I go to work every day, and when I'm going back to grad school and before that, we never called ourselves evolutionists. You called yourself a behavioral ecologist or a systematist
now he's looking at these big words.
Yeah, but evolution it's a little silly.
No, I'm talking about for the layperson. I'm not talking in academia.
I mean, for the layperson, it's okay. I don't have a strong objection to it because I get it, but I don't. In the field, we don't call ourselves evolutionists. It's just crazy. It's like I liken it to like physicists don't walk around calling themselves gravitationalists anymore.
Right.
They might have used to at the time when
it's just silly to label yourself.
Ideas were new, but it's not a new thing anymore. It's a settled thing. So there's no.
I actually
what about Darwinists?
Well, in my show, I actually use the word evolutionist specifically to be shorter than the word it should go with, which is scientific consensusist, because it sounds silly to say that. So
scientist.
So I've just
say scientist.
Basically, I'll use the word evolutionist, and I actually in the very first chapter of my show, I define evolutionist as somebody who accepts the scientific consensus.
I would just call that person a scientist.
Yeah, I
would too.
It's for.
But there's a difference between somebody who's like me who accepts science perhaps somebody like you who actually does science. And so I'm I'm very, very hesitant to take on the name scientist because I don't do what you do.
Well, you're a science educator. I mean, you can be like it's like John, stated clearly, John and Bill Ludlow and all those guys. I consider those guys like science educators. There's nothing wrong with being a science educator. A lot of people can do that either formally or informally. And
I wouldn't call myself a scientist, though.
That's a great thing, And sometimes people who are good scientists are terrible science educators. So,
you're definitely a science educator for sure. Your channel is great.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. But the thing is, what I do is to take what you do and make it possible for people as dumb as me to understand.
That's what a science educator does. Yeah.
That's what a science educator does. But I am not a scientist. I don't go out and find that new knowledge. And so
that's fine.
Pardon me for this because I don't really know you, but I do have a particular place in my heart where I think scientists are the people that are actually on the forefront of our knowledge are amazing. They're my superheroes. So, pardon me if I gush, but I don't think I deserve to ever hear the name scientist associated with me. I'm a scientific educator. I'll grant you that. But the word scientist, so I accept evolution. I accept the Big Bang. So I will take the term evolutionist instead of saying scientific consensusist
do you think
scientist.
Do you think there might be a difference between, because I'm not a scientist, but I consider myself to be a scientifically minded person?
Yeah.
So I think that a lot of people are scientifically minded. That they, like you said, we use the term evolution only because we accept the fact that the actual scientists know what the hell they're doing. Because we can validate some of it, but we don't have anywhere near the expertise they have. So we accept the fact that they're correct in it. So in that regard,
I have an idea.
That's how I would use the term.
I have an idea. Call yourself whatever makes you feel good. Whatever on the inside gives you that tingling sensation. Call yourself that.
I'm Tony Reed.
Fuck what anybody else thinks.
I want to be Tony Reed.
See, right now, I'm the president. That's what I'm referring. I'm the president right now.
I wish you were the president right now.
Okay, so right now,
the world will go to hell, man. The world will go to hell.
I just got to update everybody on what's going on right now. I'm updating you right now. There is a Pastor Sylvester, and there is an evil Pastor Sylvester. There's two of them there.
Yeah.
Find the one that has the goatee, and we got to get rid of him.
What's happening?
Yeah.
And who's home? Home. What are you doing?
I still don't know who home is. Pastor Williams has exited and came back in. He's trying to download it to get his mic working because he can't go to the bottom for some reason. The mic has an X through it because he didn't authorize it to use it. So he screwed that up.
He's probably been talking the entire time, Steve, and we've just been.
No, I'm talking on Facebook. He can hear us.
No, I'm saying when we're talking, he probably can hear us, and he's shouting at his computer right now.
He just said he can hear us, but in Facebook, I'm talking on Facebook.
What do you think the chances are he's saying, "Oh, I guess I was wrong"?
0.
Let me answer this very scientifically. None. 0. Zip.
Yeah, I mean,
I have a better chance of writing better papers on biology than Dr. Mays than he has of changing his mind.
When you're at Pastor or George Ludwig level of being wrong, it's so hard to get out of that. I mean, people have changed their position. I mean, like Wayne Fillmore, but he wasn't. What was that? Wayne wasn't like so in the weeds that he wasn't able to understand the concept. So when he went to look at this stuff, he realized that he was correct. Pastor, it works. I think your mic's working.
Oh, here we go.
And now we're gonna go through this whole noise thing again.
He's going to beat up the desk again.
Yeah, that poor desk. I feel sorry for that desk.
That poor desk.
Pastor, can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yay, welcome. You figured it out. See?
You don't look as bright and cheery as you did an hour ago.
Was Tony too soul-crushing for you?
Oh, come on. It's 11:30 there.
Is that late?
Yeah.
Why did it just get really awkward all of a sudden?
Well, I'm just trying to figure...
Pastor, welcome.
Welcome, Pastor.
I'm sorry that Steve is rude and not wanting to welcome you to this community of people.
Welcome.
Welcome and thank you for joining us.
Thank you. I'm glad I could join you.
So
I just think that a lot of things that were said, I felt that that you guys scored your points with your audience. I felt with the conversation that I've had with different ones who are watching the video, watching. I mean, yeah, what was taking place that I scored points with my audience. They felt that uh, you guys, from our point of view, were not addressing the issues at hand. They felt that you've been somewhat evasive, and that instead of talking about those issues, that you sort of got sidetracked. That was the feedback that I got.
Well, Pass, how about we do this? How about
Hold on, I'm gonna send you the right link. I don't think they were watching the right
yeah,
one.
I don't think they. I don't know whether they
One
were
second,
watching.
I'll get you the different link.
Let's try something. Let's try something here, Pastor. Nobody was evasive, by the way. We can answer any of your questions. I assure you. We've been doing this for many years. There's nothing you've brought to the table we've never heard before. It's all been a huge amount of debunking we've done over the years on everything you've ever said. So it's nothing new to us. But let me do this. Since we have Dr. Mays in here, why don't you pick one, and I and Kai will moderate this, but you have to stick on this one topic. No shotgunning to something else, and just by using evidence of some kind. Pick one topic that you want to address, because you got a PhD here and here. You got two, actually. But Dr. Griffith is not in biology, so forgive me, Dr. Griffith. I'm going to go to Dr. Mays on this one if you don't mind. When we get to history, it's all yours, Ocas, you know. But pick one subject, and then why don't you ask Dr. Mays about it to explain it to you and see if you understand it and agree.
Please say Frill Shark. Please say Frill Shark.
Frill Shark is good. Pick anyone you want. Frill Shark, it doesn't matter.
Please say Frill Shark.
Please say Frill Shark. But it's up to you, Frill Shark.
Shark.
Oh, he said it! He said it! There you go.
Well,
okay. What's your argument about it,
Yeah,
Pastor?
Hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. What's your argument about
okay.
it?
No, the thing was that they found this shark swimming off the coast of Portugal in November of last year, and they thought this shark was extinct. They had the fossil records for it, and the fossil records of the fossils that they had showed that this shark, 80 million years later, was identical to the shark from 80 million years ago that they had the fossil record of. So, and that was a point in the article that they make. The point of making in the article was that the shark had not changed at all in 80 million years. That was the point they made. And with the theory of evolution, changed in a place, taken out, it makes you ask questions. How is it there was a creature that in 80 million years did not change? The word saying that man has changed in a shorter period of time. And this sea creature did not.
All right, Dr. Mays?
well,
Steve,
first of all,
before you
Okay. What Pikachu?
You're welcome. I can.
had
Whoa,
some
what's
technical
going on?
difficulties. That's why I couldn't get in.
Okay.
Y'all go through.
No worries. I'm just going to mute everybody because I'm getting popping noises. I don't know from whom. So if you're not talking, I'm just going to mute everybody. You can unmute, but I want to hear this kind of thing.
What happened there?
I don't know.
Okay, so
Go ahead, Dr. Mays.
Dr. Mays, go ahead.
So first of all, it's a little hard to assess what you're talking about unless you give some citation to this. So saying you saw an article on the internet somewhere is not really a scholarly way to start a discussion on this. Now, that said, there's lots of organisms that we have everywhere that if you look at just the morphology means like their bone structure or this and that. When you look at a fossil, you don't have a lot of the characteristics that we can measure in a modern organism. So we're only looking at a certain set of characteristics. So when you say that they haven't changed, first of all, I have to see the evidence that they haven't changed, and you haven't really given that. But let's for a minute grant you this argument and say that the fossil hasn't changed relative to the modern organism, although I don't even think that's true. Those are just, it hasn't changed in those traits. It's clearly changed in other traits, because what you can do is you can take the frilled shark's characteristics of a modern frilled shark. And by the way, a frilled shark isn't a new species that was extinct. People have known there's been frilled sharks. Frilled sharks are a group of sharks that people have known about for a very, very long time. So it's not like a brand new discovery. It might be a new species of frilled shark, but it's not, frilled sharks are not new. And so because there are multiple species of frilled sharks and they vary, they clearly have evolved. They're not all the same. There's different species of frilled sharks. So that means that there's clear evidence that they've evolved. It's not that they haven't changed at all. It's just relative to some fossil, they haven't changed in a small number of traits that you can measure in a fossil and compare to a modern organism.
Can I just make a point?
And then if you look at their DNA, you can see the signatures of evolution in the DNA of a frilled shark, because you can compare it alongside other sharks, other frilled sharks, other species of frilled sharks, which there's more than one, and you can see that they don't have the same DNA. So that means, by definition, that they've evolved, because that they can't have those differences in their genomes unless there's evolution going on. So it's just simply wrong to say that they haven't changed at all.
Point of order.
At best, what you can do is say they've changed in a small number of traits that you can compare against a fossil.
Dr. Mays, I sent you the article, part of order, because you're so, no offense, but you're doing a straw man, only because his argument is incorrect. They didn't discover a fossil. This was a living organism that they found.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Okay. All right, so I've sent you the actual article, and I know you're familiar with it, but he's arguing that it's a fossil. It's not. This was a living species. It was an extinct species of a type of frilled shark, right?
Well, where's the article?
I sent it to you on Facebook.
Oh, okay. First of all, there are lots of different frilled. Oh, it's a web page. See, so I'm looking at it.
Yeah,
now.
I don't have the paper. I don't know what paper he's referring to. I wish I did. This is the best I can find on it. I've looked.
Yeah, this is not a paper, and that's a.
But this is what I explained to him before about pop science and actual science.
This is Anguiensis. Okay, I can show you that that's not a new species.
I didn't say it was a new species. That's not what I said. What I said that this was, and they said that it was extinct when they found it.
I think he's confusing that with the coelacanth.
No, that's not at all what this is.
I think he's conflating it with the coelacanth. Is that possible?
Am I being heard? Can I be heard right now?
Go ahead while I get my book on sharks.
Sure, but
okay. I have. Can you hear me?
Nicholas, is that you?
No, this is Tony.
Oh, Tony. I'm sorry. Go ahead. My blog tabbed out.
I'm going to tell you this. When you mentioned the frilled shark, I was really shocked about it because I've been familiar with frilled sharks my whole life. When I was a little kid, my mom bought me a book called Album of Sharks, where they talked about frilled sharks. And it's in there. It's by Rand McNally Publishing. You'll find it if you look for it. It does exist, and they did talk about frilled sharks. They're not anything unique, and so the part of the reason why I had an issue addressing it is I didn't see where your argument lie. It didn't make sense to me. But this is not a species that they ever, well, maybe the species itself, but this is not a shark that has ever been considered
you're roboting.
Extinct.
You're roboting. Tony, you're gonna have to exit and come back in. You're roboting too much, and nobody can hear you. Dr. Mays, I sent you a different one about the what it was they think that the there's an extinct clade that's involved in this, but it wasn't 80. It was they call it an 80 million year old living fossil, meaning that the lineage goes back 80 million years. He thinks that it means that it somehow, I don't know, existed for 80 million years. I don't know, but he's confusing a lot of things here by again looking at the article here. It says that living fossil is a term coined by scientists to refer to a living or recently extinct organisms, but that resemble those only from fossil records. Species could be declared as living fossils if the fossil species of old relatives to the time of origin of the extinct clade. And so there's nothing really too surprising about this. This happens all the time. I mean, they found.
So the species in the article you sent is Anguineus, and Anguineus I have in this book here, which is it's a great guide to sharks. Is well known from all over the world. So it's not like this article is just discovering this shark.
When was that published? Because this is 2017. I was probably way before then.
This book,
obviously.
This book is old, and that species is
so but this is the difference between pop science and actual science.
This is from 2005,
right? 2005.
But this species was described a long time ago.
So would you say this is sensationalized pop science?
Yeah. It's not what he's citing.
It's interesting, but yeah,
it's not at all true at all. It's this is already a very well-known species. It's in fact it lists as it's a near threatened species listed by the IUCN, and it's found as a bycatch of a lot of deep bottom trawls. So people have been pulling this species up in trawls for probably since people have been trawling in deep water. So it's not it's not new at all, actually.
I found the article. This is the article, one of the articles, and it says that the Institute for Sea and Atmosphere off the Algarve coast in Portugal, indeed, called a dinosaur era shark, a rare frill shark aboard a trawler dubbed as a living fossil. The scientists from the Institute for the Sea and Atmosphere said that its remains had been dated back to 80 million years ago.
You're misunderstanding what the article was saying. What they mean, first of all, it's not an article by scientists. The people who write those articles are science writers. And trust me, because I've had science writers write articles about my work before, and they get things wrong. They sensationalize things to make it more appealing to because the audience is the general readers like yourself.
This is what it says later in the article. It says living fossil is a term coined by scientists to refer to living
fossil. Pastor Williams, hang on, Pastor Williams. First of all, I just read that. Let Dr. Mace finish what he's saying, because I just literally read that.
I want him to hear what I'm saying, because I want to read so make sure we're on the same page. So I want to read to make sure we respond to the same thing.
All right.
Living fossil is a term coined by scientists to refer to a living or recently extinct organism that resemble those that know only from fossil records. Species we declare living fossils if the fossil species are old relative to the time of origin of the extinct phase existing descendant.
Right.
Living fossil is a terrible term.
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
And I'm a scientist, and I can tell you that. And I can show you papers by other scientists who study these sorts of problems who will tell you that living fossils are a terrible term. There's a very well-known paper about coelacanths, which is a real species that was found that was thought to be extinct.
380 million years or something like that.
Are not living fossils is the title of the paper.
And that was a lot older. Those were like 380 some odd million years ago.
Actually, the coelacanth latimera is the one that was found in the Mozambique Straits near South Africa and Mozambique, and it's that genus is not that old. So the group coelacanths is old, but latimera, fishes that are like latimera are only about 65 million years old. So even though coelacanths go back much farther. So the modern coelacanth is a very derived coelacanth. So when we look at coelacanths, they have changed a lot, and we can see that. And not only that, but we found that there's coelacanths in South Africa, and they discovered there were another population in Indonesia. And those two populations are very different. So because those two populations live in different places, and they have looked a little different, and they have different DNA, that means they've evolved.
Is there any reason why these things are? Hang on a second. Is that they're so damn ugly? I mean, and one of the reasons I think that many of these things are sensationalized, and again, might just be me, because people see something so freaking hideous and goes, "What is this?" And it draws people in to read the article. Because I'm telling you, that is an ugly looking freaking thing.
But you're not an ichthyologist. An ichthyologist.
I'm sorry. Beauty is the eye of the beholder. Let's get ichthyologists. They'll be like in love. It's beautiful.
I think they're beautiful. And coelacanths in the very few people have seen them alive but there's now people in spots where people dive with them, and they're actually really pretty. They have kind of this blue color or something.
Okay, coelacanth maybe, but this.
Let me read the rest of the article.
Sure. This goblin shark? Oh my God, it's ugly as hell.
It says this right here, and making the point of what he was saying earlier. It said scientists suggest that the lack of nutrients in deep, aquatic environments contributed to the unchanged appearance of the sea.
Appearance. That's the key word. Appearance.
That is absolutely the key word.
Yes.
It said unchanged appearance.
Appearance.
So it says So it said scientists said this was not pop
Okay.
science. As you said, what
Nicholas,
you
can
said,
you
scientists.
hang on.
Nicholas, please.
Nicholas, this is all yours. Hang on, Pastor. Hang on,
all right,
Pastor.
all right.
Nicholas, this is all yours. Go ahead.
All right, I'm not trying to, Pastor. I'm not trying to crowd you out, but I really like you. I'll let you finish and then I'll go.
Let me finish. Then you can go. Now, this thing that I'm saying, I do my research. I do my studying too, as well as you do. And when I have scientists, and I can produce you documentation of other scientists who agree with what I'm saying. If you just say that you're a scientist and you disagree with other scientists,
They don't have any papers on it. That's the problem.
Let him go, Steve. He's digging his hole. Digging his hole.
Now, my understanding is here. The person speaking out doesn't have any papers either, because he hasn't written anything on it. He did his research like I did my research.
Alrighty. All right. Is that what you wanted to say?
Is that it?
All right, all yours, Brett.
All right. So respectfully, for you to sit here and say that you've done your research, that's another thing to add to the pile of things that you've said that's not true. You found an article.
Pastor, hey,
I let you talk.
Pastor,
I
I hate to do this, but I am going to mute you because you will give you extra time to speak. Let him explain this to you because you are not the expert here. He is. Let him educate you. Seriously, I'm being.
Do your research and be quietology.
Yeah,
this is really important. I understand you're going out and you're finding papers, and to you, that totally. I used to do that when I was an undergrad, when I was in high school. I used to do that. If I wanted to research something, I'd go into Google and I'd find articles and I'd use that to make points and I'd use that to inform my worldview. What you have to understand is when you find an article like that is not written by the scientist, and it is very likely written by a person who does not fully understand what the science is saying. These are really, really complicated fields, and people put their lives to get to like where Dr. Mays is. Like it'll probably at least 10 years of education. It's a long time to get there, and it's a lot of hard work, and you have to really, really dedicate yourself to understanding this. And someone who writes, articles every once in a while about a new cool shark that they found, they're not going to understand the details. So when they're saying things about it, they're not necessarily true. They can make mistakes. And this is what Dr. Mays was saying. Living fossil, I'm a paleontologist. That is one of my most hated terms. It's not a good term. It's not useful. It's a buzzword that gets used to draw people in, because it gets used for crocodiles all the time. Crocodiles get called a living fossil, and they're very different a lot of the times from what you see in the fossil form. And it's just I would urge you seriously to think about, if you really do care about where you're getting your information from, and if you care about being right, seriously strongly consider where you're getting this information from, because basically everything I've heard you say tonight about biology or fossils is just 100% completely wrong, and it's because you're getting your information from faulty sources who don't know what they're talking about. And I'm not slamming them. That's their job. They report on these things, and they get a lot of people interested. Like, how many people knew what a frilled shark was before that 2017 article dropped? Not many people who didn't already care. And so people find out, and that's fine, but they're not the experts. And to try to use them as an expert to back yourself up is just setting yourself up for failure.
And sometimes, because I've had to do this in nuclear stuff, there's a heuristic way of approaching things where you are going to explain things that are not going to be completely correct, only for the fact that the person you're trying to explain it to doesn't have the prerequisite fundamental knowledge to understand it completely. So you're just trying to relate a concept. And I think that's what science educators that write these kind of things do. Even if they have the knowledge, they are still explaining it to a layperson, and there's so much prerequisite knowledge and all this stuff. I mean, even Pastor Williams, when he was talking earlier, he mentioned something about second law of thermodynamics. We all know he knows nothing about thermodynamics. I took thermodynamics in college and in nuclear school, and even I have a very rudimentary understanding of it. But to try to explain something that complexity about entropy and enthalpy and all these complicated formulas and stuff like that, you're not going to be able to do that in a little article that you just want somebody to click, read, and see an advertisement. That's what they're for.
And a scientist didn't write this article that I was sent about this. It's written by a staff writer for the webpage. Her name's Sarah Kirtes, or I don't know if I'm pronouncing her name right, but she's just a resident staff writer for this Earth Touch News network. So she's probably a freelance writer. She probably gets paid very little by the article. She might have a little bit of bachelor. Usually, what a lot of science writers have a little bit of bachelor's degree background. Sometimes they might not have any science background. And so they're writing about things that scientists say. Sometimes they call the scientist and ask them questions. Sometimes they don't. I've had staff writers write articles about our research and call me. And a lot of times what happens is a lot of these articles are formed. Usually there's like a science news site, and other news agencies and websites pick up that story from that one site and replicate it, basically. So they don't even write a lot of it. So this is sort of either third or fourth hand removed from the actual scientists who are doing the actual work. So it's no surprise that it's not, it's not presented in a way a scientist would present it.
Can I say something? Like, if a source comes up like this, I think the best known place that you can find freely for peer-reviewed papers is probably Google Scholar. And if you find something out there that's like what you guys are saying and it's not on Google Scholar, it's probably not even a scientific paper at all.
Yeah, that's true.
I'll catch some flack for this, but I'll go ahead and throw out if there's an article and you're having an absolute hard time to find it, there are sites out there. There are ways where you can get articles for free.
Oh yeah.
If you don't like publishing companies, you can do that. So it's now with the internet, it is absurdly easy to actually find the primary literature and see what the actual results are and what the actual reporting on these things are.
Pastor Williams, you're going to have to unmute manually. And yeah, it's funny you mentioned that because I all the time will use like Ken Hovind's Creationist Notebook, 9th edition, back when he wrote in the 80s, the mid-80s, and he threw out all these claims, many of the same claims I'm sure Pastor uses. And at the time, you couldn't go validate the sources. We didn't have the internet. Guess what we can do now? And guess what we find when we go actually source check? All of them are wrong. I mean, not just one. Every one of his scientific claims is debunkable. Maybe one or two are just minor, but a few of them are outright just hugely wrong. Some of them are missourced, misquoted, and some of them just what he cites as the evidence, it isn't in there at all. And so he didn't care back then. He didn't expect. I don't think he had the forethought to realize one day some people might have the ability to in real time check these things. And I've confronted Hovind on it. Many people have. He doesn't care. He really doesn't care. But when I show somebody else, even like Matt Powell, if you guys remember him, that younger creationist, he was adamantly a young creationist, and he still is. But he did admit to me that Hovind's arguments were flawed because he did look into what I told him. So even he had to go, yeah, Hovind had bad arguments back then because he didn't source check them correctly, or he didn't because he didn't care. So Pastor Williams, my advice to him is source check this stuff because you're not source checking it at all. You're just reading some blurb you see on the internet. That's not research. Spend 5 months doing one topic, and I might consider you using that word. Do like a thesis, like Nicholas or Mays had, Dr. Mays had to do, or Dr. Griffith. They've all done actual research, and I'm sure it took more than 15 minutes to do research.
But people can learn how to do research. Sure. It's like like what was said. It's a skill you have to learn. You can't just grab these web pages and draw conclusions from them like you're doing.
Could I ask a question?
Go for it.
Since you guys have made yourselves believe that you're the only ones that got the facts, what is the difference in the 80 million year old fossil and this shark they saw off the coast of Portugal? What is the difference?
You'd have to show me the fossil, first of all, and you haven't cited any paper that has the fossil.
Okay.
And second of all, I explained that there's more than one species of frilled shark. There's more than one population of them. We've known about them for a long time, and they vary. And just that variation is proof that they evolve. The fact that any two populations, or there's two species of frilled shark. I mean, there's two species, which means they had to have speciated. That's evolution. So they had to have evolved. There's at least two species. I'm sure there's probably more than two species. That there's just not enough people studying a lot of those benthic sharks. But there's at least two species of them. So it's clearly, because of that fact, it's clear that they have evolved.
Wouldn't it be awesome if evolution was destroyed by a frilly shark?
And again, well, you know what's funny is his own article kind of debunked it because the key word here is appearance, which we try to explain to him what a phenotype is and morphological differences. Just because things appear to be the same.
Can I interject a point?
Yeah, but let me finish, please. Just because there's not that much change of appearance, that's only because of, like I said, selective pressures. When we say evolution's occurred, that's on the genomic level, and you have to do genetic sequencing and then show there's some kind of changes between the genomes in the populations to say that evolution's evolved. Because then, again, evolution is only on the population level. A single organism cannot go through evolution. It doesn't evolve. You do understand that, Pastor, right? A single organism does not evolve. It can acclimate, but it cannot evolve. Do you agree?
The individual organism.
Individual organism. Right, Pastor?
Mm-hmm.
Do you get that?
Only populations evolve.
Pastor, did we lose you? Okay, Dr. Griffith, you're going to have to unmute. I see you trying to talk.
He's muted, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he's muted. If I can interject, something that Pastor's been trying to say about species that do not seem to evolve because they appear to look very much like the fossil. So they appear like the ones here today appear very much like the ones that scientists say are thousands or tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of years old. Every summer I go to a beach in Northern California called Stinson Beach. It's just north of San Francisco. And Nicholas, you might want to look into this too. It's a beautiful sandy beach, and sand dollars wash up. It's the tides gentle enough so that these beautiful, delicate sand dollars wash up. Even some live ones wash up. They look a little bit different than the bright white ones. But right next to this beach is a 150-foot tall cliff that's loaded with oil shale, and it's loaded with sand dollar fossils. They're the same shell. You can take one of these sand dollar fossils and take one of the fossils that you just picked up that morning on the beach, and unless you know what you're looking for, they look the same, except for the color. And there's a few dots on the top that are different. These are creatures that haven't changed at all, and they still look very much like the ones that you find inside the rocks. 150 feet up a cliff, that's a whole different matter because of the subduction of the cliff is being pushed up. It at one time was at sea level. So anyway, that's just what I wanted to interject. There are things to look for even if you're not a scientist.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Pastor, we're going to try to fix your mic. You're going to have to go down to the bottom and unmute again for some reason. I didn't mute you, by the way.
Hey, Steve, I think this might be a good idea to...
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say this is a good time to interject some of the questions. I was saying that, telling you on Twitter that I wanted to ask the pastor. I remember when Jurassic Park, the one that rebooted, came out. I think it was either Ken Ham or something like that, was saying that the mosasaur, like there was two mosasaurs on the Ark of the Covenant or something like that.
You mean the Ark of the Covenant?
I was saying,
first of all, you mean Noah's Ark.
That was a hell of a movie.
That would be a hell of a good movie. By the way, can you unplug your mic and plug it back in again, Pikachu? You're popping like mad. And
Indiana Jones would say, Moses, why did it have to be mosasaurs?
Why did it have to be mosasaurs?
Oh, man. We actually have stumbled upon something great, I think.
I think we can work with this.
This is good.
Mosasaurs? Why did it have to be mosasaurs?
Yeah.
Mosasaur, I barely knew her. Am I right?
Their heads would explode. Ah.
Am I popping now?
A little bit, but it's better. But yeah, just get out there quickly.
Yeah.
You're having a lot of weird noises.
Story.
Yeah, but what I was saying was that around that time when Jurassic Park came out, you had Ken Ham saying that there was two mosasaurs on the or I think he said there was two mosasaurs on the Ark, and I was like, wait a second here, okay, Jurassic Park didn't have the capabilities of housing an animal this big, because this is an animal that's like 50 city buses long.
They're 50 some odd plus feet.
Yeah.
It wouldn't fit.
And the thing is that even the caption that they had it in would not have been big enough in the movie to house him and to say such a large animal. So what makes you think that something like that, if you do believe in this, Pastor, could fit inside of a boat that's way less than that and that's made out of wood?
We got
there is an answer here.
Aren't mosasaurs aquatic?
Yeah, they're aquatic lizards. Yeah, they're
aquatic. But the thing is that
we're all dorks. Okay.
Ken Ham wouldn't put one on the ark because he knows they're aquatic.
That seems odd. I don't know. I don't remember Ken Ham saying that. That's why it's a weird.
He wouldn't say that.
I'm going to break out a Ken Ham response. Were you there? Were you there?
Yeah, do you know that he said that or not? Do you know everything Ken Ham said? No. Yeah, I can't. I have no way to check the veracity of that claim, Pikachu. Actually,
the question is, how many Pikachu's did he put on the ark? That's the real question.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, he was claiming that animals that big were on the ark, and I was saying, like,
yeah, it's bullshit.
Yeah, we talked about this the other day, Pikachu. By the way, you weren't around, but by looking at the dimensions of the ark, this was we did on Discord with Mr. Atheist and a few people.
You don't even evolution was true. Why aren't you Raichu?
but Ken has said, if I correct me wrong, he says there's 6,600 species on the ark, and that would be a pair of each, right? And it could be more than that because it depends if they're clean or unclean, right? Right.
Mm-hmm.
So
600 kinds.
600 kinds, right? So if there's 600 kinds, there's going to be two of each. So we figure there's 13,200 animals on the ark minimum, according to Ken. Figuring out
one window.
Figuring out the volume of the ship based upon the given dimensions. Each animal would have had about that much space to live in, not including, as Cal put out, the fact that it has one window. You would die of methane poisoning.
It would be worse than that Carnival cruise, the poo cruise. It would be a shit-filled wooden boat. That's what it would be.
It's so bizarre to even conceptually try to hypothesize how it would be plausible. It's not.
It doesn't even need somebody to come out and say this is what was on the ark. Like, before they even get that sentence out of their mouth, they should be dismissed. It's not possible. I mean, just
and how many? And does anybody know how many actual things in the ark in Kentucky, in that a monstrosity they call a museum of some kind?
It's a fine vessel, sir.
How many exhibits are there? I think there's only like less than a dozen. Is there? Because even they recognized they couldn't fit that many type of animals in there to show people.
Yeah, it's not hundreds.
Yeah, so I mean, even they recognize that we can't even do this on our own exhibit to make it even bullshit possible.
But we can all agree though that Noah did an excellent job on that cafeteria in there though. I mean, they must have eaten like teens.
And don't forget. Oh yes, and don't forget the where you buy your little trinkets and things at the end.
The gift shop.
The gift shop. Thank you. Wonderful job on the gift shop.
Really
no one has yet to answer my question.
Yeah,
go ahead, Dr. Mason.
This very problem is once you start to realize how many different living things there are, and you start thinking about the ark. This is what led me away from believing in a literal Bible when I was probably about 5 years old. I mean, I have very strong memories of being in Sunday school, and I loved animals. And I love the Noah's Ark story because if you're a little kid and you love animals, who doesn't like the thought of, being on a boat with all the animals in the world, right? Mm-hmm. But as soon as I start to learn how many animals and how many plants there are and how many organisms of all kinds there are, I'm not buying it.
Here's a question I have. I always wondered this when I was going through church. If God he's so powerful, right, that he can control the waters like he did to flood the entire planet, and all of these animals that would be needlessly killed. The animals didn't do anything wrong. Right. Why couldn't God just say, you know what? I'm going to strike all the people dead. He's God. He can do that. Why flood the entire planet?
I agree.
Can I answer this?
Knock them all down.
It's stupid.
Can I answer this? First of all, you underestimate how much of an asshole most animals are. They're real assholes. No,
come on.
I will hear no more of you, sir. The gentleman from Kentucky, will you please be quiet?
Overmodulating there. It's funny. One sec, Dr. Mays. I actually had a friend that I hadn't seen in like 20 years who's still Mormon. I mean, he's Mormon all his life. He's one of the nicest, most decent men I've ever met in my entire life. Just a beautiful human being. But we went out for lunch and we started talking about because I left the church, and we started talking about Noah's Ark. And he's not a young Earth creationist, although he does believe in the literal blood flood story. And
Yeah.
he thinks that there is something of the Noah's Ark, but he doesn't know what it is. But he agrees that scientifically it's not possible. But the way he takes it is whether it's true or not doesn't really matter from far the faith. And I'm just, eventually I hope that I can understand it, either if after I die or now. I just accept things as they are now, and it's not really a major importance one way or another. Now, I get what he's saying by that, but at least he recognizes the science even says it's complete bullshit, because he's not an idiot. He actually is a teacher. But he has his faith, and he wants his faith to be confirmed by some means, but he recognizes that he doesn't know. And I think it's kind of an honest, but same kind of a dishonest approach to learning things, because he recognizes there's a problem there, but it's just not important enough a problem to really address some of the other problems of the faith, right?
Yeah,
so
I think that's fine.
It's a hit or miss. I mean, I love the guy, I really do, and I that's as far as we went in the discussion, because I didn't want to attack his faith, but he recognized that even now, because for kids we were talking about this. You were kids I was 17 when I became Mormon. He believed it probably a lot more than he does now, because he's a lot more educated.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fine. I don't have any problem with that. If it's the problem I have is when it's like I have three things. If you're not hurting yourself or others, if you're not forcing your beliefs on anybody else, and if you're not presenting your religious beliefs as if they're something that they're not. And the problem I have is when people start to have these religious beliefs about the Bible that they present as if they're science. That's the problem I have. But if you just say, well, it's weird, and I sort of believe it, but I don't know, and that's fine.
Yeah, if you're not a scientist, if you're a scientist, I think it's you can't do that.
Well, and you're not. Well, of course, right. Yeah. And if you're not pushing it on anybody, or you're not thinking we should teach it in the public schools or anything.
Yeah, he doesn't believe any of that.
Yeah, then what are you going to do?
He's a lot more. He said he actually told me something that was very surprising, because his family was hardcore Mormon, especially his parents, hardcore Mormon, and I loved his family. Again, they were like my second set of parents. But he said you'd be surprised how much more moderate Mormon I am than I was when we were growing up, and that was a huge surprise. He still has never touched a drop of alcohol, but
yeah.
He's more moderate.
Well, it's just a silly story. And the thing is, if you look at that story in the Bible and you take from it, it's a message about stewardship, or it's, maybe even it's a message about the consequences of sin. Those are to me why that story is there. It's not there to describe some catastrophic flood or some biogeography lesson that happens afterwards. It has nothing to do with that.
It's to describe what God will do if you don't obey Him. Period.
Well, I wouldn't even. It's an Old Testament story, and a lot of Christians don't necessarily hold to everything literal in the Old Testament anyway.
Yeah, and I'm okay with the stewardship aspect as well. I think there's something to be said for that. But we also know that much of the Bible narrative from Genesis was passed down from oral tradition, and it came from other places. It came from other stories. These are reiterations. Yeah. These are derivative. The Bible flood, I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah.
It's derivative. Yeah. It's not an original story.
The Gilgamesh kind of.
Gilgamesh and a few others. The Popol Vuh has a great deluge as well. So these stories have been around for a very, very long time.
And it's no surprising that people who their culture developed on this enormous floodplain would have stories about floods.
Correct.
So,
I really wish
much
he'd
as
fix
I
his
hate
mic,
to
though.
say this, I did an episode on this.
What did? Oh, how about we just save your time,
You're
Tony?
using the argument from I did a video on this fallacy, just like you did the argument.
That's what I'm going to do.
Save us time, Tony. Just give us all the videos that you haven't done yet, and then we'll take about a second. Okay.
I've done like 82. So
why are we even still talking? Just play Tony read videos.
Yeah, we don't need to be here. What are we here for? I'm gonna go drink. Fuck you guys.
By the way, where did Home go? And did we figure out who he was?
I think I know who Home is, but I'm not sure. It could have been this guy. Terrence.
Sorry, Home. It is 2018. I didn't mean to try to gender you. I promise.
A guy named remember I'm trying to get a MGTOW to come on. A MGTOW messaged me and he said that he's interested in having a discussion.
A what towel?
MGTOW.
MGTOW. Men going in their own way.
Yeah,
what is a MGTOW?
Oh my freaking
Towel?
god!
Men going their own way.
Yeah, MGTOW.
That's not a real fucking thing.
No,
Stop
you
it.
can-
What is
No,
that? What is it
No,
really?
they
No,
do
you
a
can
lot.
learn today.
They do a lot of.
He's fucking with you guys. He's high. He's fucking with you. Okay, look at. So
I've never heard of a MGTOW. That's for real. I've never heard of a MGTOW.
really?
Men going their own way.
No.
No, you're fucking with us. We're all making it up because we're all like on the same page here. Men going their own way. We can't be all making that up.
Going their own way where, though? What does that even mean?
Do you know what
What does it
MRA?
mean?
Oh, hang on.
In their hands.
Do you know what MRA, men's rights?
Vaguely. I don't think that's a real thing either, so I don't pay any attention to
Okay,
it.
well,
But
the
what is a MGTOW?
The MGTOW are men that have gone their own way from women. They think that.
Oh, get the fuck out of here.
There's a
People
whole
get
bunch-
a life. Get a hobby.
That's a real thing.
Yeah, the sad part is
They're
I can't.
reactionaries.
I can't.
Yeah, they're reactionaries.
I can't nail them down to one thing because there's so many different types of MGTOW out there, and I had a discussion with them the other day.
I can lame.
But-
There's one thing you
But
can nail them down to.
no, hang on, let me finish. They one of the groups that I'm trying to get on is they're against the women. They're fine with women voting now, but they argue that women should have never been given the right to vote. And I've got to get it. I've shit
Are
you
you
not.
for real?
Yes.
Oh my god, this is like incels. They're
yes,
pissed off at the world because they can't get laid because they don't have any tact.
Yeah, that's the consolation.
Actually, what I'm a big
Hang
time.
on. Everybody's talking. Kyle, do you remember I told you I'm going to find you a dumpster fire? Did I not give you my word? I'm going to find you something. This is what I'm fucking talking about. I have found a group that is advocating that the women should not have ever have been given a right to vote. What better glorious dumpster fire could that be for somebody to try to argue that?
Let me give you the best piece of advice, MGTOWs, if you're listening, for if you're going your own way. I don't even know what the fuck that means. If that's
Men
even a
going
real
their
thing.
own way, yeah.
Your problems with women, wherever they stem from, no matter what happened with you, they're your problems, and they're not anything that need to be visited on women. They are fine the way they are. The problem is not them. The problem always has been, always will be you, and that won't change until you get a fucking personality or something where you're not stuck behind a keyboard all fucking day tapping on it and doing nothing else. Get a life and grow the fuck up.
Kyle, do you know who one of the leaders of the MGTOW movement is? Dean Esme.
It's
Not a fucking shock. Not a bit.
In
fact, if I had to envision a MGTOW, he would be the poster boy for it.
No, it gets worse. It gets worse. Dean Esme is a big figure in the MGTOW, and he's married.
That's like, why would you even say that? A big figure in the MGTOW movement. It's not a movement. It's a bunch of people behind computers that are pissed off because they're pushing their problems off on other people. If you just got a personality,
movement.
Okay, fine. Okay,
No.
not a movement, but it's a real thing. It does exist.
You know, this came up when you guys interviewed that Ron Miscavige guy the other day.
I
saw
loved
that.
him. God, he was great.
Yeah, that was great. You know, I think a lot of these groups like this are the internet amplifies them so much. So there's a very small number of them, but you think there's like hundreds of them. Like, I was surprised that Scientologists, there's only like 20,000 Scientologists now.
Yep.
Very
20,000.
It's because it's so shocking to the conscience. Like hearing the words "men go their own way" or a men's right activist. I mean, there are certain words that the brain is not equipped to deal with put together.
Yeah.
Sounds suspiciously like I'm not getting laid.
There
That's
can't
exactly
be
what it is.
He's married. Dean Esme's married. Or he
There
was.
can't
I
be
don't
that
know
many of
anymore,
those.
but yeah.
There can't be that many of them.
Oh, yes, there is. There's subsets of MGTOW. There's so many different types out there, and they're fighting against each other. It's weird. It's like the
Oh,
incel
there
thing.
can't be.
Yeah, and
that
they're
many.
I
specific.
didn't-
They're
Dude, I didn't
they're
think so
like
either.
rampant in the atheist
I
community.
just sat there in a hangout the other night, and I talked to a couple of MGTOWs, and I was like, you guys are fucking with me.
You're
Oh,
talking
that's
to
the
same
people.
ones.
That
over
was
and
the
over.
hangout that I went to. Yes, and
He is right. He did watch
Yeah,
those.
they
I didn't know what that was
they-
though.
they
It
rec-
was
Let me finish.
bizarre.
They recommended to me this guy named Terrence. He has about 65,000 subs. He's really big on the internet in the MGTOW thing. And I reached out to him. I said, "Your name was given to me, Terrence, by these people." I dropped in their hangout to talk about MGTOW to get him on for a dumpster fire. And I was honest with them. You know me, I'm not going to bullshit. I said, we want a dumpster fire. We want to just you guys to come on and do your shtick, anything, but for views. I mean, seriously. But anyways, I reached out to this guy Terrence. He seems real nice, and he's like, "Yeah, let me go check it out." And actually, he's been watching for a while. He's getting ready to go to bed. I invited him to come in. But yeah, he said, "Yeah, I'll come in and talk." He's got a decent channel, so he's legit.
Here's what
nice.
pisses me off though. Now I'm really angry because you said he's got 65,000 subs. We do shows with actual merit and shit to them. Like they actually mean something. This person has 65,000 subs, and all he does is bitch about problems that he thinks aren't his, but he's pushing them off on other people.
I haven't watched any of his
I'm a
videos yet.
MGTOW.
I watched a little bit of it. No, he's actually got a pretty wide variety of stuff. He's got 69,000 subs.
I'm a KigTow actually. Kyle's going his own way.
Go ahead and put a picture of your hand in your wallet.
Yeah, he has something called
I would like.
he has something called Redonkulous.
I would like.
Hang on, he has something called Redonkulous.com. Have you ever heard of it?
Oh, jeez.
Oh my God! See,
Redonkulous.
okay, confirmed, dude.
Well, I mean, no, he seems like a decent guy so far. I mean, I want him on as a guest.
Part of a men goes their own way movement.
Well, I don't know his standing on it. He has some videos on it, but he was recommended to me, and so I haven't really had a chance to dive into it with him.
Well, whoever that friend was that recommended that,
they were MGTOW.
You should never ties with them, probably.
Where were all these?
It was a
people
woman.
What I want to know where these people were before the internet.
Working, doing
letters,
being productive members of society.
They were probably
complaining about fucking women to the people at work.
There wasn't. I don't think there was any of them. I think the internet has created these communities of the weirdest groups.
Absolutely.
That and SJWs. The fact that you can now create your own universe, your own subset of groups. The fact that there is a name for every single thing. I got into. I shit you not. I got a hate-filled email from somebody because on a show, and I said this jokingly, I thought at the time, but I heard that somebody identified as a wolf, and I said that's not a real thing, just like I did with the MGTOWs. You cannot identify as a wolf. You cannot identify as anything other than, I don't care how much you want to be a wolf, you cannot be a wolf. And I got an email saying that, how dare I try to tell somebody who and what they were.
Okay,
that's the problem.
Well, okay, it's just even worse than that. I know two people that identify as dragons. You have a named dragon who identifies as a dragon, an opal dragon who they're dragons. They're dragonkin.
Are you sure they aren't furries?
But no, they're dragonkin. And it's like, well, how do you know what a dragon?
You don't identify as a dragon. No, that's not a thing.
You take it up with them, okay? I'm just telling you, they identify.
They might like dragons, but you cannot identify.
I'm not disagreeing.
As a dragon.
I'm
you
not
cannot
disagreeing
identify as something that doesn't exist.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I totally agree with you, but that's just, it's bizarre.
There's a lot of different ways you can identify within the realm of being human. Like there's gender identity, but outside your species identity is.
I don't know how that would even work.
I mean, I'm a pretty open-minded person, but I agree with Kyle.
I do too.
Me too. I'm gay, and I say this shit's too far. You cannot identify as an outside species. You may want to be.
I can identify as a half human, half drow elf with an 18 in ton dexterity.
Right, and I identify as Cher,
with a +5 Vorpal sword, doing a deck of many
bizarre.
horrors.
They were literally defending somebody calling themselves a wolf. Like, that's something to me that needs a friend. Like, hey,
that's what I was going to say.
You have been shut up so bad that you are now wanting to be a wolf instead of a person. Let's go to the mall. Let's go watch a movie. Let's do something human.
I don't get it either. I really don't, honestly. I mean, I think the furry costumes are cool, by the way, and I guess dragons are furries. I don't think that's true. I think dragonkin is different than furries, but again, I don't know the nuances. But
how many furries are
there? A lot.
Yeah. We have a convention here in Vegas every year, and hundrds of thousands of furries show up.
Yeah, it's legit.
This is what's wrong.
The only reason why I use this Pikachu avatar is because I want to piss off the religious people so much that they will cause counter psychology to end up being beneficial to my side. That's pretty much it.
You don't identify with a Pikachu.
I didn't.
Okay.
No.
What was that?
Why?
I use this Pikachu avatar because I want to get the religious people to get so mad that other people just drop and stop.
Most religious people don't get mad about Pikachu.
Yeah, I don't know.
They're actually going to like Pikachu.
Yeah, I'm not sure how that follows.
I'd say most people kind of don't care about Pikachu.
If you want to piss them off, take a rainbow flag and staple it around the top of it. That'll really get them.
A lot of religious people don't care about that either. So,
yeah, there are some religious people who get up there and say that Pokemon is of the devil.
Well, it obviously is, but I mean,
Yeah.
Well,
Dude, D&D is from the devil, and I love D&D.
Harry Potter.
So
There's
Harry
a
Potter.
reason Pokemon and D&D are both so fun. I'm just saying.
Yeah, all the good, ever notice all the good shit is satanic? Like I like rock and roll and heavy metal, Black Sabbath. All the good shit.
There's
is
a reason
like,
for that. Remember, Satan was the one that wanted you to eat of the tree of knowledge of good.
Maybe
good
there's something to be said about it.
He
'Cause
wanted you to know
all the
that,
good shit I like.
He didn't want you to go through life dumb. Just remember that, people, when you hate on Satanists, he wanted you to know what was going on.
Yeah, damn Satanist.
They said if you reverse the song "Stairway to Heaven," you can actually hear all kinds of satanic subliminal messages and shit like that backwards.
You know what you hear? You know what you hear? Just music backwards. It just sounds weird. And
if you don't play it backwards, you might have a chance of like meeting a girl.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, here's a funny story though. If you play a country song backwards in reverse, you get your tractor back, your wife back, your dog back, and your beer.
Good one.
So
it sounds like German.
The funniest thing about the Stairway to Heaven thing is I used to have a reel-to-reel, and I've done this. I literally have done this in my room, played it backwards, and there is a small segment that sounds to me like "Here's to My Sweet Satan," but here's the problem.
Oh, not you too.
Oh, no, it does to me. No, it does. It really actually does. Now, the only problem is I can't recall if that's because
crying out loud, Steve McRae.
I can't recall if that's because I've heard that phrase and then I incorporated it into what I heard. But there is a section, and if I tell you right now that it says "Here's my sweet Satan," and you listen to it, you even have to acknowledge, yeah, it does sound like it says.
What's it called when you see patterns in things that?
It's apophenia. Apophenia is the.
Can I say something that totally exemplifies irony?
Pareidolia.
Argument from Stairway to Heaven. Go ahead, Tony.
I got a good album.
I got an idea.
I love that album. Yeah, I love that album.
I want to say something that's like really the most ironic thing you would ever expect. You'll never say this in your life. I'm the first one to say it. Wouldn't it be awesome if we could actually hear from Pastor Williams?
Yeah, we tried. His mics, he conked out on him. He's done.
That's fucking insane.
Yeah, sorry.
He tried.
tried.
The frilled
I
shark.
want to see how these people would
so.
Yeah. I want to see how these fucking people will respond to Iron Maiden, the Number of the Beast, and some of the other fucking satanic songs that he made.
Number of the Beast.
Have you noticed the art from Iron Maiden? It's amazing stuff.
Brilliant art.
And one of them was for 666, the Number of the Beast, because it's not about. If you look at the artwork, it's their Iron Maiden Eddie that's controlling the beast. So he's like the boss for the devil. It's not that they're claiming to be satanic. They're claiming to be the people who run Satan.
Yeah, he's the puppet master. Eddie was the puppet master.
Brilliant cover.
Oh, I love it. Oh, I'm a huge Iron Maiden fan. Peace of Mind is my favorite album, though.
Yeah, now we know who we were in the 80s. All of us were like those geeks that could be
not wait. The
Trooper.
I'm a Johnny Cash fan. I'm a Johnny
Elvis Costello and stuff like that.
Power Slave was phenomenal.
I like Power Slave.
Yeah, there was a bunch of songs.
But Peace of Mind is their definitive Iron Maiden album. If you want to know what Iron Maiden really is about, that was Peace of Mind.
Peace of Mind, the Trooper.
My Revelations, the Pool,
You see this, Pastor?
Yeah, I had the
devil music's got him.
See where evolution leads?
Ozzy. Dio, the Dio horns.
Yeah.
No, I mean,
He was with Black Sabbath, Ozzy.
Yeah, no, but I mean, the family I was telling you about, my Mormon family that I grew up with, their parents would always tell me, because playing games like D&D would make you worship the devil. Now, granted, I grew up worshiping the devil, but that was purely coincidental. So I don't want to think there's a correlation there. But no, but I did have, back in the day, occult symbology. I was really fascinated by occult symbology, like the pentagrams and the runic letters, and Theban, which is the witch's outfit that is actually on Diary Madman. Runes are on We Sold Our Soul for Rock and Roll. No, it should be Speak of the Devil has runes around the edges. But yeah, I was fascinated by that kind of iconography, and I was like, "This is cool shit." But I was a kid, right? The Solomons of Seals of Solomon and stuff, sigils.
Sweet Satan, baby.
Go check it out. No, it does sound like "Here's My Sweet Satan." That's not gonna.
I've listened to it. I did that. I fell for that wives' tale, but all it sounds is just music in reverse. Now, if I wanted to hear it, I guarantee you I could find a spot that would sound something more similar to it.
But it's always at the same spot.
But it is not them saying "Sweet Satan."
No, I agree with that. No, I do agree with that. I don't think it was. I think it's totally accidental. But But why is it it's only at the same spot that people hear that "Here's My Sweet Satan"?
Because it probably does sound like that, but that doesn't mean that it's saying that.
Oh, I
It's
agree.
just-
No, I agree.
But Kyle, Jerry just yelled down the stairs that he remembers playing Stairway to Heaven backwards and hearing Sweet Satan, and he didn't know it was there. He
Yeah.
was just
Well,
playing it backwards for fun.
It sounds really does
Listen.
sound like it. It honestly does.
I will not sit here and take Steve and your husband colluding behind my back to
Damn
try
it.
to make him sound not as weird as he did earlier. I will not put up
Now,
with that.
The
but
Fuckaboy.
Kyle-
Wait. Fuckaboy Assassin says it sounds like it. And would Fuckaboy Assassin lie to you? Come on, Fuckaboy Assassins would never lie to you.
The thing to
Yes,
do
Dr.
is to take Dark Side of the Moon and play it to Wizard of Oz.
That's true too.
I have done that.
Yeah,
that is
that's
that is
fact.
awesome.
That is
Yeah.
a thing.
What were you going to say, Dr. Griffith?
There were endless soundtracks done during the disco period that used to play percussion backwards. There are certain percussions like you would hear the
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
and that was cymbals played backwards. And
Oh.
it really looks weird. As it
You-
sounds weird. So you listen to some disco stuff, and they did a lot of stuff like
You know,
that.
and also
From last night, you were like a living encyclopedia. Like the amount of things that you know about, like that, just like little things like that. What was it last night that you were talking about with the It's something to do with the movies. What was it that you were talking about?
Movies.
we
I've
were
got
talking about Audrey Hepburn
Yeah.
and stuff last night.
movies.
Yeah, she was firing them off like,
Yeah.
like it was
And
nothing.
also, you should note that Led Zeppelin. One of the most underrated thing about Led Zeppelin was their drummer. That they were able to play in these weird time signatures and do this off psychopathic type beat that is bizarre. It's in fact on Kashmir. If you actually look at the way they did the metrodome for Kashmir and the time signature changes, I don't think any of their songs ever done anything even remotely similar. It was a masterpiece.
It's because of the thickness.
Masterpiece.
As a
Well,
musician,
okay.
I've
The
tried
thickness
to
of his,
do
the thickness
Kashmir,
of his
it doesn't make
drumsticks.
sense.
It was the thickness of his
Yeah.
drumsticks.
No, there's a timing thing. It's like certain bands like Rush
Rush,
have
John
done.
Bonham, and Neil Peart.
They did a lot of stuff in 7/4.
Mhm.
I don't know if that means anything to anybody.
6/8, 6/8.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Time
7/4,
signature.
3/4, 6/8.
Yeah.
It was bizarre times.
Yeah.
And Kashmir does not make sense. I've tried to make sense out of it. I can't.
But it's
It's a
great
great
song.
song.
Yeah,
I have no idea how to play it consistently.
Before Andrew Lloyd Webber got lazy when he was writing Jesus Christ Superstar, there's a part that Judas sings where he sings, Nazareth, your favorite son, should have stayed a great unknown. That is in 13/16. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
Wow.
6.
Yeah, it's it.
No, thank you.
Yeah.
Let me tell you though, the greatest musical on the planet is by Andrew Lloyd Webber, and that is The Phantom of the Opera.
It's good too.
That is a masterpiece. No, that is a masterpiece.
I fell asleep
Masterpiece.
confirming that for you.
But you saw Dr. Griffith. You saw how difficult it is to stay in time. So even if you just have,
Right.
if you start off just like a 1, 2, 3, 4, and even if you do halftime 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, you
Yeah.
get the triplets, triplet. Would you start getting into
Triplet,
these weird
triplet.
combinations and the lead have to be offset from like the bass and that has to be offset from the drums and each person is doing this weird. I don't know how anybody stays in that time. I have a hard time enough.
They're all high.
Even worse, how do you do it high? You can't even do it like it's.
That's when you want to do it. That's when you're like, hey, try this out, man. Look.
Okay, done.
Yeah.
Like it's
That ain't nothing.
No, you have to memorize it.
It's brilliant.
Jimi Hendrix, insane the amount of creativity that man had. I mean, did you know that when he played the national anthem on that guitar, that's because he did it on a whim. He was late to get up there. He was supposed to play the night before. The bands that went on before him went over, so he wound up going in the middle of the day with no one literally around as far in terms of the the overall crowd size, and killed it. And that's what those psychedelics will do for you, man.
Opens up your
Take you
mind.
to another planet.
One of these days.
Oh, Dr. Mace, do you subscribe to the stoned ape theory?
I remember you guys talked about this before. You have
Yes,
to remind me. It's
The theory it's that
Is it Joe Rogan had a guy I talked about this?
Yes, and it's a very interesting thought.
Terrace-
It says that our ancestors, before we were able to be sentient and be aware of ourselves, that they stumbled in a forest and stumbled upon some mushrooms, ate those mushrooms, and that was what unlocked that barrier.
His name was Terrence McNamara.
That's
What
What do you think about that?
Yeah, Terrence
I think
McNamara.
it's total baloney.
Terrence McKenna. That's what it was.
Is total baloney? Oh man, nothing cool is ever true.
No, nothing cool is ever true.
Yeah.
Although probably the first 6 people who ate mushrooms died.
Yeah.
Boom.
Trial and error.
Okay, don't eat those.
But you know what? They went out happy and enlightened and very woke.
I mean, why are mushrooms? Why do they have psilocybin in them? It's a defense for the mushroom, for the fungus.
Mm-hmm.
So it's lots of things for millions upon millions of years have been eating psilocybin in mushrooms, and they have what is to most animals an unpleasant experience, and they avoid those mushrooms. Right? That's why there's psilocybin in there. It's not there to get you high or whatever. Humans, one thing weird about humans is we tend to consume a lot of that stuff, and for some reason like it, whether it's alcohol or I guess some other organisms do alcohol, but alcohol is a big thing with humans, and
Cannabis.
psilocybin, and we seek those things out. So I just, it doesn't make any sense that would be the trigger, or else you'd have all kinds of things becoming, woke, I guess, from eating psilocybin mushrooms, because lots of animals are eating. It's not just us that ate mushrooms.
But do you agree there is something to be said from on psychedelics that you can be a lot more creative than you can normally be? Because I mean, I've had hallucinogenic states, but only because of sleep deprivation. But it's very vivid. I mean, but
they're not real.
They're not real.
I'm not convinced that that's true.
Really?
I think that might be more of a myth than a reality.
Timothy Leary would totally disagree with you right now, and the Beatles would be.
Timothy Leary would be a liar then.
Yeah, but the problem is, you look at people who are creative already, and they do psychedelic drugs, and then you start to associate the psychedelic drugs with the creativity. But think about every bozo who's ever been high on mushrooms and never did anything creative out of it.
Right now.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
There's hundreds of thousands or hundreds of millions of people in the history of humans.
Well, that doesn't mean it doesn't have to work on everybody.
Yeah, but that's my point. Is they're probably creative already in a lot of ways, and then they just do that. I don't think the two things are.
You don't think it opens up chakras?
There's a key to unlocking creativity, and that's when the day you stop giving a fuck what anybody else thinks about you. And what the psychedelics do is they drop the need or care for how you're being portrayed to anyone else. And when you do that and you're able to just be who you are, then you can really be creative. But it's that barrier that stops us from doing that. And drugs cut that barrier off.
Kyle, if you're working on a stage show or you're working in a musical group, you don't want people in altered states of consciousness. You want them as
absolutely
woke and there as possible. I have kicked so many actors off stage for you're stoned, leave, because you're a danger to everybody.
Totally. I don't want, as a scientist, I don't want students in my lab who are high on mushrooms. I don't think that's
definitely not.
They're not going to write a better thesis. Or
they might think they will.
Definitely don't. There are certain places your dentist shouldn't be. Fucked up.
I gotta tell you,
but I will, as a performer, as a stand-up comic, I will say that writing comedy, because I can edit when I'm sober, being high while you're what was awesome is I could write a bit about something socially conscious, and then be high and make up a bunch of jokes, and then not be high and edit it again.
That's interesting. Tony, I thought you had to be funny to be a comedian. I didn't know that it had branched out.
Don't you mean former? Tony, don't you mean former comedian? Because obviously you don't have that skill set any longer, right?
Damn.
But Doctor,
we're only doing that because Tony is in the finals of the Atheist roast battle. He went through
this guy right down there,
5 rounds and won all 5 rounds. So he is in the. It's what either him or Not Your Witness.
You gotta admit though, Not Your Witness.
He's brutal.
Brought it.
He's gonna kick your ass.
He's
a pig-tailed sheep fucker.
I got my work cut out for me.
I gotta tell you, I've never seen the brutality of somebody that Nacho has in
one more question, Dr. Mace. What about aquatic ape? Do you subscribe to the
I was gonna ask about that. Aquatic ape hypothesis.
That's a very old thing.
That's old. That's really old, actually.
And the way I feel about a lot of stuff like that, even though I don't necessarily, I maybe haven't evaluated every single one of these ideas, but the longer the idea has been around and it hasn't caught on, the more likely it's nonsense.
Okay,
So-
one more then. Okay, the AGTAL theory. AGTAL theory.
What's that?
Apes going their own way theory.
Oh, apes going their own way.
Separating from humanity, because
I think that's baloney too. It's what happens when you give apes the internet.
So I'd be asking, have you ever read a paper that one of your students wrote or something like that you swear they had to been on mushrooms when they wrote it? 'Cause, I mean, we get creation stuff like listening. No,
I feel that way every time we do a show,
yeah,
Steve.
I was gonna say, listening to talk to Williams' idea to be high as fuck for that. That was just bizarre. So practically wrong. But have you ever read a paper that somebody actually put forth, legitimately thinking that it's a good paper? You're just like, is this person trying to be serious? Because you know they had to be wasted as hell when they wrote it.
Yeah, it's called Replacing Darwin.
Yeah.
Oh.
Hey Kyle.
Wow.
Hey Kyle, how do you
Yes.
think these fucking MGTOW shitheads would have been if Hillary Clinton would have won?
Oh man, there's so many answers for that. Fortunately for them, that she didn't win because obviously, as the flat earthers will tell you, she could not, or she made the speech at the convention saying that the women were about to break through that final glass ceiling, and according to Delano TV, that meant that she slipped out, that the dome
Yes,
is
it's a
actually
firmament. Yeah.
above the
Glass
planet.
firmament.
And
Oh my God.
that's what cost her the election. So we will never know, sir. We will never know. But fortunately, the hydrogenated Cheeto in chief is taking over.
Yeah, I agree. And we got the exact opposite effect where the SJWs are that way.
That's the problem, though. Look, that's the problem with everything is that everybody's on the extremes now. There is nobody that, like, to me, the middle's comfortable. Like, it's not too hot, it's not too cold, it's not too spicy, it's not too salty, it's not too sour, it's not too sweet. It's right in the middle of where you want to be. But for some reason, everybody has it in their head now that if you are not extreme on everything, then you stand for nothing. And what that does is polarizes everybody, and there's no middle ground anymore. So everybody's just looking across at their diametrically opposed person.
I totally agree.
But Kyle, don't you think that most of the people on the extremes actually think they're the centered ones?
Some of them.
No.
No,
some
not
of-
anymore.
No?
Some of them
Anymore,
do.
Some
yeah.
yes, some yes, but for the most part,
Okay, maybe not normal centered, but normal.
Pastor thinks what
Yes.
he's saying is normal. He thinks
they
everything.
think that's where it should be.
Yeah.
But the problem is that they're not willing to like concede any ground. So what they're doing is they're marching off to their corner and they're crossing their arms and they're just standing there like, okay, now what? I'm not moving. You're going to have to move. And the other side's doing the same thing. So what that does is within its own sections now, because nobody can come to any middle ground, those fracture out. So when you have people that, like with the feminist movement, you now have people that are called TERFs that are extremist versions of the feminist incels, which are now breaking up into, and I'm not kidding you when I say this is not me joking around. They have things called fixed cells, brain cells, Curry cells. They're fracturing out and splintering themselves, and what that does is creates a society that has lost its mind and is batshit crazy, and that's why we can't have nice things in the world. That's why social justice warriors are ramping up like never before, and they can't accept the fact that people think differently than they do. And the key to being a decent person and living a happy life is that you must accept that not everyone is going to agree with you. Most of the time they won't agree with you, and that's okay. It doesn't mean that they're a horrible person, and it doesn't mean that they're wrong in what they're doing. Now, yes, there are some shitty people out there, and there are people that do horrible things, but for the most part, we drive ourselves to those extreme places because we aren't willing to accept the differences that other people have. And the moment that you start accepting those differences and saying, look, it's okay as long as you don't harm me or you're not harming anybody else or you don't try to push your beliefs off on me, we will never get to that point because it's always a me versus them mentality. And as long as that runs the table, then it's not going to be a pretty place.
Yeah, well, you're
That
wrong.
pretty much sums it up.
I never
Kyle,
saw
there's
it
something else.
once.
Huh?
Yeah, there's something else. Me being down here in New Orleans, I've seen that same shit from the fucking right wing for the last 10 fucking years when they're talking about taking down the statues of Lee and this and that, because they were talking about it ever since the last mayor of New Orleans first came in. Is
There's your
saying
first
they
problem,
want to
though.
take
Is that
Confederate
you?
statues.
Wait,
The right wing work.
From
That's your thing, though.
the
The
right wing.
right wing work.
You know,
What you
you know, Dr. Griffith, you're talking about like normative type stuff. Like all of us here in this hangout, maybe Pikachu's off to the side a little bit, but
Yeah.
most we're kind of the norm when it comes to how people in science think, right? I mean, we don't have really odd views when it comes. Everything we say is what you find scientifically. It's normative, but
I would not consider myself scientific.
you
Just
don't.
putting it out there.
Okay, but you don't have any really.
Look at us being all
besides your Sphinx things,
humble
most things you probably fall in line with.
I'm
science
saying I
like that.
accept science. I just I
Right.
don't know the thing that
Sure.
the rest of the people in this room know. So I will not claim that either.
Right. I'm just saying the things we espouse are normative. When you have things like Pastor Sylvester, would be on a fringe. Like he's like in the 4 standard deviations away from norm. Would you agree? And so, but to his perspective, he's thinking he's the meridian. He's thinking he's like the normal, and that we're the far 3 or 4 standard deviations over, because he doesn't have the basic understanding that he needs to understand why his reasoning is flawed, why he has so much misinformation. Now the difference is, I'm hoping that eventually, as he participates in these types of conversations, he gleans things, he learns things, he finds out why his arguments are wrong, because we have seen a lot of people over time come out of younger creation, or at least change their positions over time. I've never seen in the entire time I've ever been on YouTube a person who accepts evolution and science ever go change their mind to young earth creationism. It has never happened.
If you want him to change his mind, maybe not call him a potato.
No, he hasn't reached the level of potato yet. You got that wrong 3 times already. He has to study to get to level potato.
Right now he is a baby
Steve.
tuber.
Well,
He's a
Hey, just making it worse.
He's a baby tuber. Baby tuber.
Steve, can I say this? You know what? When somebody says that, I ask them, what is the 6 points of faith? And what I mean by that is that there's 6 points that I know of. What it is that you question creation, the Bible, prayer, the congregation, the relationship to God, and then, of course, morality made by God. If you can answer all 6 of those things, then I can understand where you're coming from. But if you can't answer all 6 of those things, then it's likely you were probably never an atheist to begin with.
Well,
I just did money.
I'm not quite sure I follow that, but I think there needs to be a distinction made. I'm personally not, and I know Dr. Mays, I hate to speak for him, but I know him well enough that I think this is true. We're not attacking Pastor's belief system as far as religion. It's not. I couldn't give a damn what he thinks about religious. I am attacking his science. His science is not even. It's just wrong. There is no if he's wrong, right or wrong, or how much is he right. It's just period wrong. That is not faith. That is not religion. That doesn't take into account, if Christ rose from the dead or not. But if somebody says, that's what Kyle, exactly. Bingo. Kyle takes that aspect, right? Because that's his positions. But if somebody tells you, Pikachu, 1 + 1 = 3, no matter what your religious beliefs are, would you not say to that person, you're just wrong?
Or they're a stoned ape.
That's what we're doing to Pastor Wrong. He's just Pastor Wrong. I just call him Pastor Wrong. Sorry.
Don't say
like plus 2 = 5.
I think the best book on creationism that I've ever read, that I still go back to all the time and think about, is Stephen Jay Gould's book where he talks about non-overlapping magisteria.
Non-overlapping magisteria, yeah.
The Rock of Ages. It's called Rocks of Ages.
I didn't read the book, but I've read excerpts, and I'm familiar with his writing.
And it's that's kind of how I see it. It's like if you have these beliefs about religion, as long as they don't overlap into science, they don't, and your scientific beliefs, conversely, don't overlap into religious beliefs, then it's fine. They're meant to deal with different things. They were never meant to deal with the same problem. And the problem is when people think those 2 things are the same thing.
Yep.
And that's where you get creationism pop up.
The way I would put it, and see if you think, when it comes to non-overlapping magisteria, as a scientist with religious beliefs, when you step in that lab, your religious beliefs don't matter any longer. As soon as you open that door to that lab, you are in a scientific mode.
But I would say that people in their everyday lives, they don't apply the religion in everything they do either. So it's not just the lab.
Sure. No,
you don't pray to balance your checkbook. You do algebra.
You do if you don't know math. If you don't know math.
Well, you know what I mean, right? I mean,
people pray that the Dallas Cowboys win on Sunday.
There are some people who really do pray for everything, but I see what you're saying.
Yeah, no, I see what you're saying too. I'm just saying, as a scientist, though, you shouldn't let you can't let your religious beliefs affect your data. Is what I'm.
No, and that's in fact Ernst Mayr, the biologist, famous kind of evolutionary biologist, Ernst Mayr, and Theodosius Dobzhansky had a little tiff about this in a way. Because they were friends, but Mayr, because Dobzhansky was religious, he would sort of joke and say, "Well, Dobzhansky's religious on Sunday, and then the rest of the week he's a scientist," kind of thing. And
I'm okay with that.
I don't necessarily think that compartmentalization is a bad thing necessarily.
I'm okay with that.
I mean, we all use different tools for different things.
But
there's a thing. There's a thing like what I tend to think is that the difference between people who are, religious and people who try to apply things scientifically is that those who think, at least like I think we do, in terms of the being more science oriented, they want their beliefs to be reliable and valid, as opposed to comforting and convenient. That's the way that I think about it. They cling to the comfort and convenience part because it feels good and because it's easier, is what they grew up with. On the opposite side, people who are skeptical care about it being true, reliable, valid, and you care more about the process than the result. I think you care about.
I think also everybody needs a little comfort.
Right. That's true, but it's also an easy straw man, though. As I noted to Dr. Mays when Dr. Jensen was talking about stuff, how many times did he refer to atheism and things like that, which had no relevancy to the topic at all? I'm sorry, evolution, atheism, utterly distinctly different. There are no relationships to each other whatsoever. I'm sorry, Pastor, you're just wrong on that. They are completely, utterly unrelated.
I don't know.
I agree. People need comfort. I agree, people need comfort, but I don't think that should be a reason to cling on to something that can be, demonstrated to be false. And I think that's what happens a lot of times.
I think that if you have to kind of deny reality to get your comfort, that should be a sign that something's wrong with how you're seeking your comfort.
Well, that's what I meant. Aaron was here in Huntington and gave a talk at Marshall, and I was there, and we hung out and stuff. And in his talk, he said something about, I think I remember it correctly. He's like, "There's no truth in anything that's not sort of empirically verifiable. If it's not real, there's no truth in it." And I said, and I kind of called him out on it a little bit. I'm like, are you saying that if in Romeo and Juliet, the story about kind of being in love and kind of tragic things, that there's no truth in that because it's not a true story? And he couldn't answer. He just said, well, literature is entertainment. That was his only answer to it.
Yeah.
And of course, there's truth in other things besides science that don't have anything to do with empirical truth. And we need those things. We need philosophy and theology and literature and all that stuff. And he couldn't acknowledge that there was truth in Shakespeare even. And I found that kind of blew my mind a little bit. So I think there's a pendulum. Kyle, you were talking about being in the middle, and this pendulum can swing the other way to where everything is all just rational, empirical, and there's nothing else that means anything. And I think people who believe that are kidding themselves.
Agreed. 100%.
There was something I wanted to get to. Yeah, there was something I wanted to get to with Kyle. The thing was, you see, I have schizoid affective, so I have to go through psychotherapy groups or whatever once a week. And I noticed something. I sometimes watch the street epistemology things, channels on here. And one of my biggest critiques of it is that, you see, so many people use religion as a crutch, that
Sure.
if you really strip away that, they can easily fall into an existential crisis that is very far beyond what we can know of. And that's why like street epistemology is, in the psychological world, is an extreme hard what they call that, intensive care therapy, because it can really it can actually get you depressed if you're religious and you grew up in that system and you don't have the defense mechanisms to defend yourself from the problems, from just not having God,
What we're finding now is, and I did actually the second part of the video that putting together comes out tomorrow, and it touches briefly on that. But what we're finding now is that in some instances, religion acts as a almost like a filler, because what they're seeing is, as religion declines across the country, because it is on a decline, there's also a radical spike in people who are following conspiracy theories, people who are into pseudoscience, the superstitious things. So what they're actually doing is replacing one, but I guess, aspect of a belief for the other. It's just an interchanging thing. So the question then becomes, ultimately, which is more harmful? It's an interesting question, because when we did 2 shows on the Jilly Juice lady, and she posted, I kid you not, 2 days, probably 3 days ago, a post on Facebook, and most of everybody in this room can verify this, asking for amputees who would be willing to come and let her demonstrate how, over the course of time, she could regrow their limbs for her cabbage juice. This lady in her Facebook group has thousands that visit, that give her support, that do all of this stuff. And so what's happening now is that people are abandoning the old-fashioned religion, and they're replacing that with things like Flat Earth, things like Jilly Juice, things like MMS Miracle Solution, these crazy ideas. So, I mean, where's the solution there? I mean, if you have to trade one for the other, what do you do there?
I think a big problem is people have pushed a lot of sort of rationality and science and all that stuff over the years, and in effect, you don't want to pull the rug out from people. It's exactly like, I agree with you totally, Cloud. You need to replace it with something that does the job that religion did, and science doesn't do the job that religion did. So, I almost think we need more sort of art and literature, more serious art and literature and things like that in school, more than we need more science.
So arts and philosophy,
because those kind of things, art and
history,
philosophy,
I'll take any of those.
Meaningful cultural things, or even sort of just traditions. Sometimes what people are looking for in religion is just to belong to a group, and how we as humans belong to groups are through traditions.
Absolutely.
And so you need sort of productive traditions that can ground you in a community. So it's if you pull those things out from under people, they will replace it with stuff that's not healthy for them.
And religion, like, you could, if religion, to me, I use my grandmother as an example. I have a very religious grandmother. I mean, she is in the church every chance she can get, and I would never dream of trying to take that away from her. And there's a reason that I say that, because she doesn't try to push her views or her beliefs onto other people. She doesn't deem other people different or unworthy. That's where religion ultimately messed up in the first place. Like, if it really practiced what it claims to preach, which is, treat your neighbor, love thy neighbor, treat everybody as you would yourself.
Great.
Religion is not is not the issue. The issue is the harmful ideas. When you start taking your ideas that either make somebody feel like they are less than you do, shun people, threaten them with hell, threaten them with eternal punishment. When you do that, then you have crossed the line, and that's when you deserve to be attacked.
Well, it's fundamentalism. Fundamentalism is the problem, not religion. And fundamentalism is really, it has a strong, it's sort of like what Jensen and Andrews and Genesis does. They have a very strong emphasis on enforcing particular beliefs over sort of solutions to things. Like that's enforcing a belief is more important than making you feel comforted, making you feel part of a community.
Right.
It's that's not as important as that you believe in this.
Right.
And if you don't, you're out.
Well, they
in the face of evidence. That's the thing that I don't get. Like, it literally tells you to that faith is, you believe in the things that are not seen. You don't see the things that are seen. You see the things that are not seen. Faith is it's telling you to suspend what you may consider to be a rational mind in exchange for putting your
well, they have to do it that way, because any rational person who is a blank slate, let's say you have a tabula rasa and you go and look at the evidence, no rational person would ever end up coming to the conclusion of creationism. None. It's not possible.
No.
Through the science.
Not even creationism. Like, I'm not even talking about creationism.
But I'm talking about through the science. If you're looking at the science, it's not possible. Not in any PhD youngest creationist would ever look at that data and go, yes, this is what it indicates. No. What they do is they start with the conclusion, what they think is a clue. They start with their premise saying this must be the case. Now let's try to twist the evidence to comport to that. That's not how you do science, and that's not. Again, I've challenged young creationists, even educated ones, even people with PhDs. Walk me through this. If I had no knowledge whatsoever, either way, it could be that evolution is true or creation or whatever. Show me through science the age of the Earth. Never once has it been able to even come close to even doing it.
Yeah. And take science out of it. Take science out of it. Anybody that tells you to disregard the evidence, don't look at it, don't think about it, in exchange for something that is not, it's not tangible. You can't see it. You can't hear it. It doesn't speak to you. Anybody that tells you to do that, I think you should doubt. Here's a good quote. I'll try to end. I'm gonna wind down because I'm getting tired,
we're gonna end this.
You should doubt those
5 minutes this morning.
Doubt those that or trust those that are seeking the truth. Doubt those that claim to have found it.
Yeah, and I've spent a lot of time for my research in Asia, and especially in China and Taiwan, and I really kind of gravitate to how their approach towards religion. And it's not, there's fundamentalist Buddhist and not all Buddhist. Like the Buddhist treatment of the Rohingya in Myanmar is an example of how not all Buddhists are these peaceful things. But in general, most people have some kind of, if it's not Buddhism, it's some sort of grounding cultural tradition. They do things. They go and they give offerings to the temple and they don't even necessarily believe in some literal. It doesn't interfere with science or anything in them, but yet it gives them sort of a community sense and a feeling of purpose and all the things that science really can't provide. But it's a type of religion that doesn't enforce these sort of empirical beliefs on them. So I think there's a lot of cultures that do religion and science together better than what Western culture does. So
fine with that. Totally fine.
Can I ask one question to Kyle and to Kyle and
I don't do any more questions.
Have you guys ever thought about getting Dr. Marlene Winnell on
who?
Dr. Marlene Winnell on the Non-Sequitur Show?
I don't even know who that is.
I have no idea who it is.
That's
so that would be a no, because if I don't know who she is,
look at this religious trauma syndrome. It's also known as RTS.
Can you send me an email on it? Because I'm not going to look anything up right now. I'm
Religious Trauma Center.
Yeah, just send it to me.
Okay, guys.
Is that like
a type of RTS?
Is that like a
hospital
that prays people for health?
Good night, Dr. May.
Yeah, we're going to be taking off.
Take care.
Good night, Maze.
This was fun. Tony, excellent job tonight. Pastor, thanks for showing up.
It's a syndrome.
Pikachu, send me it. I'm going to be fading out here, so send it to me.
Okay.
Let everybody wrap up their stuff.
All right.
Tony Reed,
you guys.
Tony Reed, you did awesome tonight.
Hi, Dr. Griffith. Dr. Griffith, we will see you soon, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, I'm
Still
sorry.
winning. You're still winning for educator. By the way,
Tony,
a little bit ago.
Tony, thank you again for letting us take your debate virginity. We love popping your cherry on that.
It was awesome.
I am glad you enjoyed it.
You did a great job.
Thank you.
Did a very good job.
I had no idea I was actually prepared.
I've had a lot of people tell me before they pop their cherry pop, they had no idea what they're being prepared. They weren't prepared for.
And congratulations, Pastor, because you have dethroned George Lujak, and that is a.
I'm not quite there yet.
That's strong words.
Yeah. I like Pastor better, so that's already he's a little higher.
I like him better. Yeah, George is just a dick, but in terms of
knowledge or to be incorrect, I don't know. They're just
Pastor would let you get a word in edgewise.
Not often.
Yeah, but he called me racist.
For the most
that's
part.
where we have our disconnect.
Well, I don't think he's listening, but if he is, Pastor Williams, please come back. Keep in touch with him on Facebook. You know,
from a room full of white people that you think are racist towards you.
Come back.
We do really like you.
Yeah, we like you. Now, your science and your understanding of science is just god awful.
It's savage. It's savage.
Yeah, it's savage. That's the savage race, is people that don't know correct science. Good night.